Hello guys, welcome to a new tutorial of Mistika 10. In this tutorial we're going to see how to move from Mistika 8 to Mistika 10, because as you know we have changed quite a lot of things on the interface, especially the ones that are related with the new color grade toolset. So in this tutorial we're going to see in a quick way where to find the new feature in the new color grade tool and where to find previous features of Mistika 8 in this new version. So let's start. We have here a small timeline with a few shots. Nothing has changed for the Timespace or for the dashboard here. The only difference here is if we go to the effects panel, we don't find the raw params effect anymore. The reason why is because now when you import something into your project or directly into your Timespace, Mistika will load automatically that raw metadata directly on the clip. So you don't need to worry about putting the right effect into the right clip in the Timespace, keeping all your project cleaner and much more simplified. We have embedded as well a framing option here to adapt to your media automatically to your project. In fact, the result size is now set by default to project. So now every time that you put media onto your Timespace, all the media will be resized to adapt to your project resolution. There are some scenarios where you don't want this behavior, especially for example in VR project, in which you want to make the stitch directly in Mistika Boutique. Then you need to change this behavior from project to input. And the best way to do it for all the shots in your Timespace, because right now we don't have a global setting to select the way that you want to import the media, is just to use one shot as an example, change the behavior from project to input like I did here, select result size, and then in propagate all objects, click in perform propagate. So in that way, this setting will be propagated to all your clips, and then you can start making your stitch for your VR project. For this demonstration, I will keep it in project, and in fact, instead of select path to fit, because we have these horizontal bars in there, I will change it to crop to fit to remove those bars. As you can see, when we change now the behavior between input and project, the behavior of the visual editor is changing. Now it's not like in previous version where Mistika always did some kind of fit to fill adjustment to the visual editor. Now instead of that, we keep the original aspect ratio of my media and the original resolution of the clip compared with my project resolution. And in fact, we have a small toggle here to switch between these two options. So by default, again, you see as an overlay the real resolution of your clip compared with the resolution of your project. And if we enable this, we see our whole clip and then as an overlay the resolution of our project here, which is really useful. For example, if we want to reframe some shot, I can just enable that option and I can see on the whole image to reframe my shot and select the part that then I want to use in my project resolution, as you can see here. So in this way we keep the consistency between the Timespace, which at the end is the video output, and the visual editor. As you can see, the visual editor has changed compared with previous versions of Mistika. Now we don't have those tabs everywhere like in previous versions of Mistika Boutique or Ultima. Instead of that, we have moved all those panels that can be open and closed in the visual editor, we have moved them to this right vertical toolbar over here, keeping the visual editor much cleaner and simple to use. So now from this toolbar here, we can open the eval tree, the storyboard, the effects presets panel. Now we have here the management for history or versions per shot. We have the gang option, which is now a floating window that we can set anywhere. We have the display filter panel here, all the scopes, the snapshot, the keyframe graph, the shapes panel, the set color, the text extents, and finally the tracker. So basically all those panels can be managed from here. And as you can see, there are a small triangle on some of them in there. This means that if you keep it pressed, you enable or you display all the options related with that panel. So for example, here we're displaying all the options related with the storyboard. If we go to the display filter, we will enable the settings for the display filter. In this particular case, the T1, T2, T3, and T4 axes that are as well in here like in previous versions, but those that are related with the panel can be displayed in that way. In the left vertical toolbar, we have quick access for shapes. So you don't need to go now to the shape panel to create a shape. You can just go directly to here, for example, select the circle and then drag and create the circle that you want to use and in any clip or any effect. If you want to control the softness, you don't need to use these settings from here. With the middle button, you can just drag and automatically you will create the softness. With Shift, you can change the proportion between inside and outside. With Control, you can control the inside. With Alt, you can control the outside. So now we have quick presets for shapes, which is the line, the ellipse, and the rectangle. Of course, we have the traditional pen to just draw the shape that you want. And if you want to change the behavior of the points in here, we have a quick access again in here to change from smooth, sharp, connected tangent, and independent tangent. So in that way, you don't need to go to the shape panel for quick adjustments or for quick shapes, again, in any effect or in any clip. This vertical toolbar here is dynamic. So for example, if we go Come 3D on top of my clip, more options will appear here. Those are related with the selected effect. In this particular case, free transform, rotate, scale, set the pivot, or move the camera. If we select the VR Stitch node instead of the Come 3D node, we will see options related with VR. It's like adding a new camera, adding an edge point. If we keep it pressed again, see the small triangle over here. We have the add edge point or add edge point for left and right view or a stereo. We have the match color, improve offset, improve angles. So all the options that we have here in the bottom of our screen are displayed in here for quick access. Now let's take a look to the color grid node because it's by far the most important new feature in Mistika 10. We have redesigned this new color grade toolset in a way that is much simple to use and much easier to understand. And we have used this new redesign to include new amazing features that can be used in any kind of grading. So basically we have a top toolbar here displaying all the basic options for any grading. So we have the mute, we have the highlight, again with this small triangle here. That means that we can display the different options for the highlight, the on black, display key, or high saturate. We have the inside-outside options, the blending modes, the channels in which we are working in this vector, the key source, recover mode, and the LUT 3D in here. So now we can just load, for example, a LUT 3D. Let's load LUT 2, or for example, let's load another one like fifth in here. And now if we open this, we will see in a quick way the LUTs that we have been used for this shot. So we can just access to previous LUTs in a really quick way. Then we have the clamp option in there and the settings for the clamp. We have included as well an option to reset any value here on the color grade node. So for example, if I open with this small arrow here, my slider for the blend, and just move the blend, with double clicking the label of the tool, I will reset the value to the default value. Now, if we go to here where we have the controls for color, we have primary, bands, fixed, curves, and filters. If we start by primary, you see that we have changed the label for black and white compared with previous version to lift and gain to be more standard. We have included these two modes in here that are really great if you're working with the panels, because enable this mode, you will change the behavior of the primary to lift offset and gain offset here. So the moment that I just control, for example, the lift, the ring of lift, it will make an offset of the gain as well. So you can make an offset of the primaries using this tool in here. This works as well with the trackball to make an offset of RGB. Same behavior, but in an opposite way for the contrast option. So it will change the trackball to lift contrast and gain contrast to make a contrast here by manipulating one of those rings, and the same thing for the trackball. So this will allow you to have a really quick access to very basic tools in the panel without the need of finding the right knob that controls those settings. You can just enable this mode and you can use the trackball that you're using for all your grading for controlling the offset and the contrast, or just coming back again by disable this mode to the standard situation. Then we have the printer steps in here that has been reorganized in a much cleaner way. Those options, again, we can just increase the value by using the arrows here or by just dragging this option. We have the modes for the behavior of the printer steps in this drop-down menu here by selecting offset, contrast, lift, and gain, and select in which part or in which way we want to use those printer steps. And of course, the step from 1 to medium and quarter. We have included two new features here, which is the temperature and tint that can be used like a printer step. So we can just change the behavior point by point, or just by dragging this setting, or the tint as well. This the behavior of the amount of change that you're applying to your image will be managed as well, like in the printer step by this value here. So by default is 1, but it can be medium or quarter. Probably one of the most important additions in this new color grade interface is this scope over here, in which you can just control in a very interactive way the pivots. So we have the black pivot, soft clip, and white. In previous version, we only had those values here, and you control those pivots in a numerical way without really knowing where you were setting those pivots. But now you can just move it interactively and just looking at the scope, put the pivot in the area that you want. So for example, I can just move my soft clip here and then make a soft clip. And as you can see, we have a RGB curves in there that is indicating me the changes that I'm doing over my shot. We have included another way to change the behavior of the primary trackball with this small toggle here, which basically enables the knee soft. Basically, if it's disabled, the primary works like any primary tool, so it controls the whole curve. So for example, if we move the white point down and just change it, you will see that now the curve is rotating around that pivot, but is affecting the whole curve. If we enable the knee soft, we can keep those highlights intact, and with the gamma, you see we are just affecting the areas that are below those pivots. So in that way, we have a full control of our range in a really quick way. If we want to apply a soft transition between these two areas, we can just enable the knee soft by increasing the value, and this will make some kind of roll-off of our changes in the primary. We have here as well, here in bands, a small scoping here with the control of the pivots. This is basically the traditional or old ranges. As you can see, we don't have the ranges panel here because it has been integrated in the bands control. And this works like in primary. You can just manipulate those pivots in a really interactive way. And this way, you will see how to manage your color in a really, really easy way. If we click on, if we make right click in here, we see all the options for those scopes. So for example, right now it's showing the RGB curves, but if we want to see the traditional range weight, like we had in previous version, we can just enable that option here and disable, for example, the RGB curves. So we can have a more traditional view of the ranges panel like in previous versions. As well, we can just select if we want the scope from the input or from the output. Because Mistika works in parallel, every vector, all the adjustment in every vector works in parallel, it's much better to have this setting on input. So in that way, you can see the image that is that is being used as an input for this vector. But if you want to use it as an output for reference or whatever, you can just enable as an output, and then all the changes that you do will be translated to the scope in there. We have included as well a new mode for the bands in here. As you can see, we have the trackball and the sliders. And with these sliders, you can access to the hue, saturation, and contrast control for black, mid, white, and all, of course. You have these settings like in previous versions in the bottom area of the bands panel. But if you want a more visual control of those settings, you can access to the sliders here and control them manually. Then we have the fixed vectors. Nothing has changed from in this area. Basically, we have just include a small box in here with the value. So in this case, you can see to which value are you moving with the sliders. And of course, if you click on this value and use Alt, you can just change the behavior in 0.1 to 0.1 steps, which gives you quite a lot of precision when working with fixed vectors. As you can see, when we make any transformation here, a small dot appear in there. This is the indication that this panel has been adjusted by the user and it has been modified compared with the default settings. So this, if we click on it, we can just make a mute of this panel in here, of bands panel. In case that, for example, we are using a shape to have an inside and outside, then we can just switch to outside, make any change in here, and another dot will appear in here with the indication of the outside. So we can mute the outside or mute the inside in an independent way. And it's really visual because you will see in a red color if something is mute or not. Another area that has been dramatically improved is the curves panel. Now we have all the RGB curves in here in a very visual way. We have the saturation against saturation and lumen saturation and the hue curves over there. In case that we want to make the curves bigger to control them better, we can just click on this small button there, and then we can just have a quick access to this overlay, to this floating window in which we can just resize at any resolution our curves to control them in a much better way. If we have here the solo option and the gang RGB. So if we disable, for example, the gang RGB, we will have access to the different curves in an independent way. If we want to disable the solo option, for example, if we make some changes in some of the curves to see the difference, if we disable the solo option, we will see the result of all the curves combined together in the same graph. So now you can interact with them in the way that you want. We still have the traditional control from here to constrain X, Y, add points, eliminate points, and the kind of points that you are creating, a soft, sharp, connected tangent, independent tangent, or add points to any of the curves. So for example, if we go to here, we can just click in add points, and this will add 6 points to our curve. We have included as well quick access to, for example, add points, for example, to the green one. So in this case, it will add 3 points. One of them will be in the green hue. So in a really quick way, we can just control the green hue of this shot by just clicking in one of those small dots over there. Then we have the filters panel with the blur and the sharp option. This panel feels a bit empty because our plans is to add more features and more filters there for the color grading node. For now, you have the blur controls and the sharp controls for this vector. You cannot combine both of them in the same vector, except if you are using a shape. So for example, if you are using a shape or a selection, you can blur the part that is selected by your key and sharp the outside part. So you can combine them in that way. But if you're not using any key or any shape for selecting anything, you need to select or blur or sharp per vector. Then we have the qualifier here, which basically has the same features that we had in previous versions. We follow the same philosophy that the whole color grading toolset by setting all the basic options here in this horizontal top toolbar there, and all the filters, the blur, the pre-key blur, the filter 1 and filter 2, the key soft and the key tolerance here in the bottom of the screen. We have the hue, saturation, and lumen control, the RGB, the 3D key, and a new feature, the multi-layer, is now included directly in the color grid now. So you don't need to navigate through the parameters panel here to select the passes, the render passes that you want to use for your EXR multi-layer, or to select from here the layers that you want to use on your clips. So this will allow you to work with this kind of media in a much faster way. There is nothing new from the functionality perspective here, except if we go to the hue, saturation, and luma. If we navigate, for example, to this shot, we have included as well a quick access to make a quick selections of our shots. So for example, if I enable the highlight and click in red, I will select the red. If I click in green, I will select the greens, cyan, blue, magenta, yellow, etc. And the great one is this one here, which is the skin tone, which is in a very quick way. I can just select the skin tones for my shot and use that as a reference and then change it and adjust it in a way that I want. So this has been a quick overview about the new functionalities in Mistika 10 and a quick overview of how to find the previous functionalities from Mistika 8 in this new interface. If you miss any functionality or you cannot find something, just let us know, because I'm sure that the functionality is there, but with the new redesign, maybe you are missing something. So feel free to write a ticket for us using our support system or using our forums. We will make more specialized tutorials in the future about color grading with this new interface, but for now, again, this works like a quick overview for moving from Mistika 8 to Mistika 10. I hope you like this video and see you in the next tutorial.